Welcome back to Drinks Coach. Series 2 continues. This is episode 3. Look, we've still got the old signs at Vinesack. There, you see, that's my my moniker. Or at Drinks Coach UK, all lowercase, by the way. That U's supposed to be small. So Drinks Coach UK format is to do with this channel, and Vinesack to do with everything, including this channel, but everything else, and what I get up to on my private life and holidays and travel and that kind of thing. So we're back here, back in the den, back in the back cave. Nice and busy, lots of nice spirits on the shelf to take you through in due course. Fake flour, dodgy bottle of... should be a bit straighter, shouldn't it? No, I won't leave it for now. But yes, welcome. This is the beginning of a series of shows that I'm going to do. And hopefully you'll find them useful, particularly those people not necessarily in the trade. Also, because I've been to as many of the biannual press tastings as I can. Every spring and every autumn, the big multiple retailers and some generics do some big tastings, especially in the approach to Christmas. I'm hoping that in time, people will provide some journalism and some coverage of exciting products they want to sell at Christmas. And obviously a lot of wine is sold, it's the booze period, isn't it? And in the spring, equally so for the summer period and for weddings and that sort of thing. Basically this is a part 1 and a part 2 show of 10 wines that I heartily recommend from Tesco. Having done all the tastings this year, I know this is going to be mildly controversial, and sorry to those people that I upset. I'm not offending them, I hope, but Tesco's were the best this year. Tesco's have really, really rocked the Tesco's Finest range and have an extraordinarily large range of very well-priced, high-quality wines. You could argue that there are better examples of some of the wines in other places, and indeed in other supermarkets, but in the main, they charge much more for them. So what they've done is done what supermarkets are supposed to do and offer you as good value as possible for your buck. And I think Tesco's are killing it right now. They were better, actually, even qualitatively, than some of the real superstars that normally win, like Waitrose. I thought the Tesco's press tasting was better than the Waitrose press tasting. I can't believe I'm saying that, but it's true. And a lot of them were patchy, some of them were hit and miss. But Tesco's were the ones that were really good. And also, I've sent in a list of about 25 or 26 wines that I really liked, saying, look, these wines are really good at your tasting. And they very kindly sent me 10 that they had, 10 samples, out of this quite extensive list of wines that I'd strongly recommend to you. And I will mention other wines while we're doing this, but I'll try and keep it to time. But we're going to start off with 5 white wines, and then I'm going to do a show with sparkling rosé and red. But there are lots of lovely wines which I'm not featuring, which I shall try and mention in course, because I think they're wines that I strongly recommend you try. But without further ado, here's a selection of 5 white wines which I think are really flippin' classy. They're classic wines at really competitive prices. Not always the obvious choices, but here we've got a couple of wines which I think are a little bit more obscure, but 3 which show that Tesco's wines can compete with anybody's. So where should we start? Should we start with this one? Yeah, and if you're enjoying this show, please click on the bell and get notifications of each time I do a show. Going up to Christmas, I'll probably be doing 2 or 3 a week. Certainly to help people with their wine buying choices. And hopefully, first or second week in December, I'll come up with my choice for Christmas Day, posh, and my budget choice as well, because I think it's very important that if you've got people coming round, that you don't have to give them all your fine wine, but you've got a nice inexpensive alternative that does the same job. So watch this space. Okay, so here we are with a wine which Tesco's has been doing in all sorts of guises for some time. It's called Mont Grand Cru Tradition, and Mont is now an Appellation Contrôlée. I think since 2011 it has been. Now this is a wine which Tesco's has sold for as long as I've really been a journalist, I think. And it's an extraordinary drink. It's made by a cooperative in a place called the Gers, which is kind of near Basque country, where France and Spain meet, just a bit further south. And it's made from grape varieties which are quite familiar to a lot of Basque drinkers and Gascoigne drinkers. This is definitely Gascony. Like Grand Monseigne, Petit Monseigne, which are very aromatic and very attractive grape varieties that can age. But also there's some really unusual varieties and they're forgotten varieties. I think there's always 1% of a variety called Aroufiac. And Aroufiac has some magic. It allows the wine to age extraordinarily well. This wine isn't aged in oak barrels. It's made in stainless steel. Some of it might be made in concrete fermenters. I don't know, because it's a large cooperative. It's 12.5% alcohol. This wine's from a very warm vintage. It's from 2020. So this wine's already 3 years old. And if I was to ask you to drink a supermarket Sancerre that was 3 years old, I'd already expect that to be tiring a little bit. Expecting the quality of Sancerre that supermarkets can afford to put out on their own label. And certainly if you bought a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc, it would be buggered after 3 years. But this wine's kind of hitting its straps, really. And I want to show you that this is one of those discreet wines. It's got another little silver medal from the International Wine Challenge, which I judged, so I'm very proud about that. And I think absolutely it's a solid silver. £9.50. £9.50 for a French white wine from the southwest of France. Has lovely acidity. Let's see what it looks like today. I haven't tasted this for a few weeks since the press tasting. It smells of I don't know if this appeals to you or not, but it smells of almost like wet pebbles in a stream. There's a kind of a stoniness over which those Monseigne varieties I mentioned, Petit and Grand Monseigne, Gros Monseigne, that's what you call it. Hints of very nice white peach, the flat peaches, the pêche de vigne as the French call it, vine peaches. Yeah, definitely stone fruit, but it's faint. It's not fruity. So if you don't like your wines gushingly fruity, but you do like wines like Chablis, and you like wines like Premium Muscadet, something which I just did in the last show. Don't knock it until you've tried it. I think Muscadet pound for pound is way better than Chablis these days, certainly at the bottom end. So this is under a tenner. Palate's full of stones and minerality. It's got enough breadth to be taken seriously. It's not thin and lean. I imagine there's been some what we call lees aging. The wine's been fermented in a tank. Dead yeast cells from the wine fermentation drop to the bottom and kind of refurnish, veneer the wine with a bit of richness and breadth and fatness. The aftertaste just goes on, and the aftertaste is almost more beguiling than the flavour. I'm now tasting tropical fruits coming through. Suddenly there's pineapple coming from somewhere. Guava. Flipping fantastic wine. £9.50. Obscure, different. If you don't drink it this Christmas, it's 2020. This wine will age. It'll outstrip any of those wines that you basically need to put into your sangria come next Easter or something, because they've got off. This wine is fine. It can stay in the rack forever. Great emergency wine to have. Brilliant with seafood. Brilliant with a nice lunch. Great just on its own. Yeah, cracking. Right. Well, we're a good few minutes in already. But I think that wine deserved the gush that I gave it. Okay, so check this out. Beautiful sort of tiled Etruscan label. Couldn't be from anywhere but Italy, could it really? And this is the grape variety Falanghina. More importantly, if you look really close up, Falanghina del Sagno. Falanghina is a grape variety, one of what I call the holy trinity of white grape varieties, which are grown near Naples. You have Greco di Tufo, you've got Fiano del Avellino, and Falanghina del Sagno. Now, like so many things, it's not okay just to say what the grape variety is. You have to say it's the grape variety from, because Italy to fully understand the huge impact that planting that grape variety in different places has, particularly if you're on a volcano, which the world's most famous volcano, Mount Vesuvius, is the one we're talking about here. So there's lava in the soil, there's incredible energy in the soil, and every guy with a man bun and a sleeve tattoo and jeans that are too tight from every hipster in the world is currently drinking wine from volcanoes. Volcanic wines is a thing. But I get it. The wine has energy and power and tinglingness to it. Now, this is a grape variety of the three which I'm most attracted to, because I find it just so mouth-wateringly delicious in summer. And you can get Falanghinas, which are quite broad and soft, a little bit bready, like a wine that's been given a bit more ripeness. Or you can get them which are very pristine and very crisp, very fine detail. Let's call it, one's a Raphael and one's a Canaletto. Let's make this really arty, shall we? And plenty of those two to be found around Naples as well. We'll have to work out which one's the Caravaggio in a minute. Anyway, so this is Falanghina del Cura. So it's Falanghina from where it's supposed to be from, the birthplace. Not only that, but Tesco's have got what is effectively a semi-owned label with a producer called Fiudi di San Gregorio, without which this grape variety probably would be extinct. Fiudi di San Gregorio is one of the best wineries in the whole of Italy, certainly in one of the best and most well-equipped wineries in Europe. And if you go there, it's a bond lair. It's like $100 million. And when you get there, it's almost impossible to work out to go in. You go through this kind of zigzag door into this huge kind of swivelly door, and you go up a lift, and you're in a bond lair with the Michelin-starred restaurant in the middle of it. It's the most extraordinary place. If you ever go to Naples and you're on holiday there, and trust me, Naples is a lot more fun than people make out. Everyone's like, oh, it's so scary. But it's not. It's really colourful and incredible, multicultural place. But if you go inland and you've got interest in the wines of the region, and I think the wines of this region, Campania, are having a fantastic surge of popularity, and I think they'll be properly household names sooner rather than later, then go to Fiudi di San Gregorio, go for lunch, look at the incredible view back towards Mount Vesuvius and Naples. It's just one of those experiences that I've been lucky to have in the wine trade, which I can never forget. I met some very good friends there as well, who also make some very good wines at Donna Fugata, particularly Fiano, which is one of the other varieties. But Falanghina, you can see Falanghina anywhere. You can buy Falanghina from any supermarket. It's on most wine lists these days. I think in 1990, there were 16 growers of Falanghina. There was like a handful of it. Now it's everywhere because it's class. So this is 13% alcohol. It's from Fiudi di San Gregorio. I don't know how much they charge for their Sanio. $18.99, I don't know. This is £8.50. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Falanghina del Cura from Fiudi di San Gregorio for £8.50 from your local Tesco's. This has got to be the bargain of Christmas. It'd be no good if it wasn't any good. So let's have a look and see if it actually tastes like it should. There's a little bit of colour there. It's kind of a limey, green, gold hue to it. Yeah, Falanghina always reminds me of a little hint of aniseed, like fennel and juicy navel oranges. It's not tropical, and I think it's much easier to think that a tropical wine like a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc smelling of passion fruit somehow is more expensive because passion fruit are more expensive. But here this smells of gorgeous mouth-watering oranges, which frankly, class act fruit, right? So what would you eat with this? Well, I was just thinking that actually I had this, smelt it and thought I'll make a salad, and I made a thinly sliced on a mandolin, fennel and orange segment salad with a few brown shrimp, a bit of anchovy maybe, and a lemon juice dressing quite tart. And I served that with a nice piece of white fish. I think at the time it was some turbot. Unbelievably delicious, because those are the flavours you got in here. Acidity is moderate, not super high, but not low. So it's really refreshing without being sour. Okay. It's not 20 quid's worth of Falanghina, but it's flipping well £8.50's worth. It's just a lovely wine. It's savoury, it's tangy, and it's classy. And I think at that price, I mean, it's just a no-brainer. So, yeah, there we go. Wine number 2, Falanghina del Cura, 2022, I'm assuming. And three more to go. Okay, right. There is a new Albariño available from Tesco, which is absolutely delicious, which is £9, and it's spelled Alva with a V, not a B. Albariño, not a N, but an H, because it's from Portugal. I think it's actually from Vineyard, in fact. And Portuguese Albariño is a godsend. Albariño is a great variety, which if you haven't heard of before and you're into wine, what rock have you been sleeping under? It's that grape variety there, Albariño. I used to say it was the hippest grape variety in the world. I mean, even a curry house inside the M25 has to have one of these on the list. Otherwise, people are coming and go, darling, I think we'll change the restaurant. Have a look at the wine list. There's nothing for us here. Albariño is an absolutely delicious grape variety, which comes in this particular instance from where it's supposed to, which is the northwest of Iberia. The north of Portugal grows it extensively, but more famously there's a granitic area called Rias Baixas just north of that, which produces, I think, the finest white wines in Europe that aren't largely known, if you know what I mean. It's a region which I think will gather interest. You can pay 40 or 50 pounds for a bottle of Falanghina, of Albariño from Rías Baixas, and it's sublime. It's up there with other really exciting new wines in the world, the wines of Assyrtiko from Santorini in Greece, a very congested island. So the wines used to be 11 or 12 pounds a few months, like it feels like a few months, but a few years ago, but are now 30 or 40 pounds. Demand is riding high, and it's almost like it's very rare that you come across a brand new super fine wine region which it captures the imagination of every wine lover in the world, and Assyrtiko's certainly done that, and Albariño's done that. So it's difficult to find proper Spanish Albariño and a price that's acceptable. There's one that I've been following for many years, been made by monks. It's like a small collective. I think they've been made by for 100 years, and is very largely seen to be the benchmark producer of Albariño by some, certainly me, which is called Falanghina. Falanghina is available almost every year at Waitrose, and it's delicious. And I've seen the price go up over the last five years from $14.99 or $15.49 to the current price $22.49. It's going up at more than £1 a year, which is, I'm running out of patience for these wines. The wine is delicious, and I'll still begrudgingly probably pay that money for it every now and then. But alternatively, you can buy 2 of these. This is a Tesco's own label, Vina del Cura Albariño, which I think is absolutely just stunning. What can I say? I think it's a lovely wine. It's 12.5% alcohol, which is about right. That stony granite thing that I referred to, because the whole area is basically one massive old prehistoric granite meteorite that hit the ground, I think. This wine has all the things that proper Rías Baixas is supposed to have, and I think at £11 is an absolute bargain. It's made by Valminor, which is one of the great producers of the region that have a high prestige wines you only really find on Michelin-starred restaurant wine lists. What does it have? Well, again, like Falanghina, they come cut from the same mould. There's sort of lots and lots of stone fruits. I love wines that taste of nectarines and apricots, and that's where we are with this. There's a bit of preserved lemon as well. What I love about Albariño is it's so exquisitely delicious with seafood, and all sorts of foods, in fact, because it has this saline kind of notion about it. I wouldn't say it's salty. It just tastes like, saline in the way that a really heavily mineral water is saline, like Vichy water. It's got like an undertow of Vichy water about it, which just makes your mouth water. This with a plate of deep-fried prawns or calamari or deep-fried shrimp, it's just amazing. And frankly, it's one of the very, very best wines in the world with fish and chips. If you get good fish and chips, this is probably my 3rd favourite choice. I'll tell you that in due course at some point. Oh, pouring too big a samples here. Okay, right, so next one. This is from Baron de Ley, a very modern and fantastic high quality producer of Rioja. And this is their new Rioja Blanco, but it's a proper reserve of Rioja Blanco. Rioja white wines were famous for being really heavily oaked, over-oaked, like drinking liquid ice cream. They were too much. And one of the reasons for that was they used to have these American, for American read Spanish, new barrels, which they'd put white wine in, which would take all that really heavy, waxy, vanilla-y flavours out of the barrels. So when you put the red wine in, the red wine wasn't too oaky. Because traditional Rioja is aged in used wood, and it was important to season the wood first with white wine so that the red wines wouldn't have too much of that vanilla in there initially, although there was still quite a lot left. Everything's changed. People don't understand that it wasn't necessarily doing their wine reputation any good, but also white wines in Rioja are vastly improving at a rate of knots. There are all sorts of unusual grape varieties being used. Viura is typically the one they use for white wine, but that tends to make quite classic old-style wines, some oxidative wines, make some limey, fresh, unoaked, cheap, crisp white wines you can get in the area, which are very good value. Tesco's does one for a £5, literally, about £5.50 or something. But this is Blanco 2022 from a good producer, also a producer famous for making good white wines. And I believe I should have looked on the notes, but I'm pretty sure there's quite a lot of white Grenache in here, Grenache Blanc, Garnacha Blanca, which gives it some body and some richness. But white Rioja again. I'll just check the price. I made sure that I wrote them down. Where are we? Come on. My iPad doesn't want to play. Yes, it does. There we are. A tenner. There we go. Right, £10 for premium oaked barrel fermented white Rioja. It's called Vina del Cura. It's lovely. So marvellous. It's got a smell that's slightly beeswaxy, which I quite like. I think about suckling pig or pork belly with crackling, and maybe some slow cooked Cavallonero maybe in a cream or something rich and wintry. This is a really delicious white wine to go with those sort of things, and also goes very well with very rich protein. So it's a nice wine with lobster, crab. Love it with a fish stew. It's very delicious, or with a biscuit or something. Also got this taste of fresh, not cooked, not like overdone, but some white almonds. Which is lovely. It's kind of this flaky almonds, almost like almond milk. It's got a lovely soft texture. Anyway, £10. Can't say for adding that. Leaves us on to the last one of these 5. Next show will be the other wines that they will send me. Now this wine is from Stellenbosch. It's called the Stellenbosch Manor, I believe. There we go. This is Chenin Blanc from South Africa. I've just come back about 3 weeks ago from judging a competition in South Africa, which now that lockdown is, so people have got a handle on it a little bit. I've been invited back out as an international judge. They didn't allow them for 4 years during COVID. So I'm thrilled, and it brings tears to my eyes to go back to such a beautiful and magical country as South Africa. And Stellenbosch is a company in Stellenbosch, which is the famous central sort of district of the winelands. Very different climates, north, east, south and west. The north, unbelievable fine soils in Simonsberg, sorry. You have Simonsig, which is a producer there, and people like De La Graaf and Villefontaine, people that have these incredible soils. Neil Ellis, porcelain fine tannins. These wines taste, when made properly, like top Cru Classé Bordeaux, not Mickey Mouse. And we're talking like some of these wines are as good as Las Casse and things like that, and possibly even knock on the door of things like Château Latour. Now I know that's big talk. The wines age well. The famous wine journalist Tim Atkin, who writes this inexhaustible, I don't know what you should say, but incredibly comprehensive report on South Africa each year, has started to score his wines out of 100 and gave 100 points to a wine called Paul's Hour from Canon Cop. And rightly, it's a global classic, and I used to sell that when I was a wine buyer at Waitrose for £12.95. It's now £80. But it should be £80 if the wines it tastes like cost 150, right? So there we go. Enough about how much I love South African wine. It's also 24 rand to the pound, which means we can afford them. Which means this wine at Tesco's is £15. Now, that's hefty for a Tesco's wine, wouldn't you say? For no label. But imagine, with the exchange rate you've got in South Africa, what you get for that. This wine is made from Chenin Blanc. They also erstwhile known as Stain in South Africa, and it was the grape variety brought over, I imagine, by the Huguenots really early, so like around the 1700s, certainly, and became the working class grape variety, the working variety for the whole of South Africa. It spawned a whole range of incredible brandies, which I've featured on my show in the past. They make amazing brandy out of Chenin Blanc, but also it makes incredible minerally dry white wines, which are elegant and age well, and they become honeyed with time, or they can be barrel fermented and turned to wines which are really quite extraordinary and kick a lot of the world's most famous barrel fermented Chardonnays into touch. So that's where we're at with this. This is £15. Stellenbosch Manor Chenin Blanc 2022. Big vintage, good quality vintage. There's plenty of it. Oh man. The nose smells of pure, freshly cut Comus pear and quinces. like Membrillo paste. There's this wonderful warming sweetness, almost a green fig note to it. In your mouth, we expect it to be all wobbly and jelly-like and a little bit sweetish, which a lot of them were initially. This is searingly dry. This is dry like Chenin Blanc is from the Loire. Chenin Blanc is the noble variety of the Loire Valley, and is capable of making wines in places like Savagnin that age for many, many decades. And I know this is merely a Tesco's wine, but it's Tesco's finest Chenin Blanc, and I would have no problem putting that in a rack for 5 to 10 years, none at all. And I'm quite sure it'll come out the other end looking even more amazing. Here are 2 or 3 of the best value white wines I've tasted in the last 3 or 4 months across all press tastings. You really ought to get out there and try some. You'll know I've got a couple of reds to show you, maybe a couple of rosés and a fizz. That's for next time.